Welcome to this new segment of Calypten News under the lens Europe. Let's start with headlines making waves across Europe today. EU extends Russia sanctions amid Hungary's veto threat. EU leaders extended economic sanctions on Russia for 6 months, freezing €211 billion in assets, but failed to pass new measures after Hungary vetoed stricter oil price caps. The decision follows intense negotiations as Russian forces advance in Donetsk. Ukraine's Zelensky condemned the deadlock in a live address to the European Council summit. Bulgaria cleared for Euro adoption in 2026. The European Council formally approved Bulgaria's entry into the Eurozone on January 1, 2026, confirming it met all convergence criteria including inflation control and debt reduction. This marks the first expansion since Croatia, 2023, and will phase out the lev currency, boosting Balkan economic integration. EU accelerates military aid to Ukraine amid Russian gains. NATO allies pledged expedited delivery of 7 new Patriot air defense systems and 250,000 artillery shells following Ukraine's urgent request. The aid package includes joint production deals for drones and ammunition, aiming to counter Russia's intensified offensive near Kharkiv, where 42 civilians died this week. EU-US trade war looms over steel tariff deadline. With Trump's July 9 deadline approaching, Germany demanded urgent EU-US negotiations to avoid 50% tariffs on European steel and EVs. France rejected concessions on agricultural standards, while UK auto exports to the US plummeted 89% after new duties took effect last Monday. EU sidesteps Israel's sanctions despite genocide claims. Leaders called for an immediate Gaza ceasefire but deferred action on suspending the EU-Israel Association Agreement. Spain's push for sanctions failed amid divisions, though humanitarian aid to Gaza will increase by €75 million. The death toll reached 38,500 Palestinians per UN reports. Germany cuts migrant rescue funding amid budget crisis. Berlin terminated €42 million annual funding for Mediterranean rescue NGOs, redirecting funds to border security. This coincides with Belgium reinstating internal border checks to curb asylum shopping, and Germany's projected €144 billion deficit by 2029 due to defense spending hikes. Venice to vote on historic 2028 car ban. Italy's Constitutional Court approved a 2026 referendum banning combustion engine vehicles from central Venice by 2028, following protests against overtourism exacerbated by Jeff Bezos' wedding. Exceptions apply for emergency vehicles and disabled transport in the canal city. Polish security foils Zelensky assassination plot. Counterintelligence prevented Russian GRU agents from attacking President Zelensky at Rzeszów airport using smuggled explosives. The foiled plot involved 3 suspects arrested near the Ukraine-Poland border, escalating security concerns during NATO's summit in The Hague. EU scraps greenwashing law after industry lobbying. The European Commission withdrew the Green Claims Directive, which would have fined companies for false eco-advertising. Business Europe lobbied against compliance costs, while climate activists glued themselves to a Monet painting in Paris in protest. Spain's Socialist Party raided in kickback probe. Police searched PSOE headquarters in Madrid over alleged €3.4 million bribes from construction firms for public contracts. The probe targets 14 officials, embarrassing PM Sanchez as he defies NATO's 5% defense spending demand. EU busts €700 million Chinese import fraud scheme. Expanded. Customs officials uncovered a €700 million fraud scheme involving Chinese goods entering through Greek and Bulgarian ports. Textiles, e-bikes, and electronics were systematically undervalued to avoid €210 million in duties. The EU will deploy 300 additional inspectors at high-risk entry points starting July 15. France recalls 2.5M Citroëns over lethal airbags. Stellantis ordered urgent recalls of C3 and DS3 models, 2014-2017, after a driver died from shrapnel injuries in a low-speed crash. The defective Takata airbags affect vehicles across France, Germany, and Italy, with replacements delayed until Q4 2025. Germany cuts pensions for 800,000 retirees. Monthly pensions will decrease by 4.1% starting July 2025 due to a €19 billion shortfall in the Social Security Fund. The cuts impact retirees born before 1960, coinciding with a €112 billion defense budget increase announced yesterday. Climate activists deface Monet in Paris protest. 5 Extinction Rebellion activists glued themselves to Monet's Poppy Field at Paris Musée d'Orsay, demanding the EU reinstate abandoned emission targets. The 1873 painting suffered minor frame damage during removal. This follows similar protests at London's National Gallery targeting Turner artworks last week. Lyon relegated after 35 years in top flight. Historic club Olympique Lyonnais was relegated to League Two after 35 consecutive top-flight seasons, crippled by €380 million debt and unpaid player wages. The 7-time champions' collapse reflects French football's financial crisis, with 4 clubs under formal audit by financial regulators. Illegal Amazon leather in EU luxury goods. Investigative group Earthsight exposed Italian luxury brands using leather from cattle raised on illegally deforested indigenous land in Brazil's Amazon. The materials entered EU supply chains via tanneries circumventing customs checks. This precedes December's EU deforestation regulation, EUDR, requiring full traceability. Serbian students demand election rerun. Over 100,000 protesters rallied in Belgrade after OSCE validated opposition claims of electoral fraud in December's general election. Student leaders issued a 72-hour ultimatum for snap elections, blocking access to government ministries. Police deployed water cannons amid clashes near Parliament. Hungary bans diplomats from Pride event. Hungarian police blocked EU ambassadors from attending Budapest Pride under a new law banning LGBTQ propaganda near schools. The government deployed 2,000 officers to disperse gatherings near educational institutions. Brussels condemned the crackdown as fundamental rights violation. Netherlands removes controversial Golden Coach. Amsterdam's Rijksmuseum permanently removed the colonial-era Golden Coach from display after years of controversy over panels glorifying slavery. The 1898 royal carriage, used until 2015, will undergo a multi-year, contextual restoration, addressing its depictions of enslaved Africans in Dutch colonies. Italy sees record immigration amid emigration wave. 382,000 migrants arrived in 2024, mostly from Tunisia and Egypt, while 155,000 Italians left for Germany and Switzerland due to unemployment hitting 12.3% in the south. The exodus includes 40% of new STEM graduates. Satellite near collision prompts French probe. The European Space Agency's EarthCare satellite narrowly avoided debris from France's defunct Ceres military satellite at 28,000 km/h. An investigation launched today will review space traffic protocols as orbital junk exceeds 36,500 objects. That is all for today. See you next time. If you find our news to be useful, don't forget to drop a comment and subscribe to our channel.